Oh, I think we have some feelings around this. Rocco, what are you thinking?
Think we do. So, Chrissy, Justin, have you two ever been able to sign up for a service without giving your name or any information?
No.
I was
No.
thinking about this when I read it. To sign
Yeah.
up for anything, I don't care
Mhm.
what it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You have to at least put a name in. So you're telling me that there are states that are allowing unqualified drivers to get CDLs that say no name given. How is that even remotely intelligent?
Hello, and welcome to Carrier Code, your inside track to the strategies, stories, and leaders driving the trucking industry forward. Today's episode is sponsored by Driver's Legal Plan, CDL Ticket Defense for Professional Drivers, and produced by Bulldog, Trucking's podcast pros. I'm Christy Choice, here with my co-hosts Justin Copeland and Rocco Marari. How's it going today, guys?
Hey guys, going well. Got some current event topics here that I think are something that we need to discuss and focus on. Some things that are shaking up the trucking industry.
Shaking it up is right. What do you think, Rocco?
God, I agree with you guys, man. We've been on the road here for a little bit. Christy, you and I have been at some events, and I got to go to a couple others last week, and there's some great topics out there today. So looking forward to chatting.
Oh,
Anything like today's
absolutely.
topic? Has that been something that's been being discussed at some of these conferences?
It
Is it
has.
just
It
not really
has
the focus of
actually.
like super tech and stuff like that?
No, it has. Especially at the last two I was at, the last two events. Move America and McLeod. That's come up a little bit. It's something that is really concerning the industry and the industry in the whole, not just certain aspects of it. So I think this is something that's really going to touch a lot of the carriers out there that are listening.
Yeah, I agree. Higher Right did a transportation summit in 10th Street. We attended and we had a really, really great time. Now, what was interesting is that their assistant general counsel and 10th Street's general counsel did a joint compliance session, kind of ask me anything. And I listened to folks talk about English language proficiency for a couple hours there, but it is definitely a hot topic. And I love that the conversation has moved forward where we're not talking about it from a perspective of discrimination. We're talking about it from a perspective of safety, compliance, and some real world implications of English language proficiency, why it matters, and what carriers can do to really make sure that they stay ahead of this regulation enforcement. So I thought that was good. We're going to continue to hear about it. And today's topic is really just an extension of that. Justin, you want to lead us on in? What are we talking about today?
So you mentioned ELP, right? The English language proficiency, and that's really just one part. That is certainly a very big part. It's an important part. When in 2016 you had a directive from the then president to no longer enforce this, to relax on the enforcement of it, and you now have close to 10 years of it being that way. And then the current administration now signing the executive order to start enforcing it again. That really it already was out before that serious crash in Florida happened. It got a lot of traction and gained a lot of
Yeah.
support after that crash. And I know, before we all started today, we were talking about some of what we've seen in some other states. And from an enforcement standpoint, we'll get into that part too. But the other piece to this is the non-domicile CDL holders. So that is something that I think we got to delve into. That is something that truly, not that the ELP wouldn't have an impact on carriers. This would have definitely a more immediate impact on carriers as you start seeing CDLs revoked, and that could be for drivers in your fleet.
Yeah.
Guys, do you think maybe one of the pushbacks here is that people see this as discrimination? Because I'm wondering if that's, Justin, like you said, it's been out prior, and now we have new administration, and we know how the new administration and certain feelings are. So is that something that, you think that could be driving force here that, this is discrimination?
Hey, I guess I don't really know. I don't know that I have an opinion on whether it is or it isn't discrimination. I mean, that is a good question. I'm sure that there are some people within the industry that they view it as such, but there's that's the point of looking into this and reading up on this and learning more about this. It's the non-domicile CDL holders who are not here on visas that allow them to have these licenses. It calls out specifically those domestic CDL holders that are going through a valid immigration process and proceedings. They're allowed to retain it. Those that have the correct type of visas in this country to work, they are allowed to obtain it, but they still have to meet all those requirements. They still have to be proficient in the English language enough to safely communicate with enforcement officials. They still have to be able to identify signs and follow those road laws aimed at protecting them and others.
And that's a just a fantastic perspective to look at. And again, for those who are maybe against this, look at it this way. If you're a bulk carrier, and we spoke about this, many times, you could be driving, basically moving bomb down the road. So you as a citizen want to make sure that the person driving that vehicle has a really good understanding of what they're hauling, the road conditions, speed limit, because this is a dangerous profession. And that's really where I think sometimes lines get blurred and get crossed, and people think this is more of a, being more of a personal matter than really truly a safety matter, and really something that we need to move, to keep moving forward and really growing, the part of transportation that needs to be growing, which is recruiting and, safety.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. And I think that in the world that we live in, we know that everyone has an opportunity to voice their opinion, and we certainly want folks to do that. But this is less about having an opinion and more about staying informed with what's going on, right? Because we have the domiciled versus not domiciled CDL holders. And what we do know is that there's a correlation between non-domiciled CDL holders and English language proficiency, right? I think that that's just a fact that we we just need to state. Early on in my career, I remember working with a specific carrier, and we were talking about some marketing tools and some ways that they could, some tools that they could use. And one of them, he just flat out told me, he said, "No, I only hire my own." And I was like, "Whoa. What?"
Oh.
Did you say that? And they said, "Yes, I only hire my own." And I said, "I'm going to need you never to say that ever again." And,
Right.
Yeah.
and really just let them know, like, I understand what you're saying, but the things that you're saying, they have real world implications in this industry that we live in. And I don't believe that they're in business any longer. And so I feel comfortable kind of just
What a
saying that. But
shocker, huh?
but no, seriously, like, and that was the thought process, with a very straight face and with a very matter of fact tone. Hey, this is what I do. I'm not interested in really playing by the rules that have been determined. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I think that absolutely needs to be challenged. But it's coming from a perspective of safety for the motoring public and for each and every single driver that is behind the wheel of a truck today. Right. And I think if we make it less political and more factual and safety focused, that we can really get somewhere.
Christy, but what you just said, I think, is more common than people think in the industry, especially back from my previous life. We'd come across, incidents on the highway or whatever it may be. And those drivers and the companies, they were all from the same place. No matter where it was in the world, they hired their own, which is great. Give them the chance, but give them the chance correctly to really, be able to grow and be part of, the United States. Don't just hire somebody just because they're your nationality. And that's where I think lines get crossed and blurred. And what you said hit it right on the head, because that happened more and more and more often than people really think.
Yeah, I think let's take it back to what you mentioned there, Christy, is don't ever say that again. So that gets into the other side of this that this entire country needs to be concerned with, which is the labor issues. There's labor issues here with this. There's protecting those legal U.S. citizens or those legal immigrants that are here that should be warranted operating those pieces of equipment and those jobs and hauling that freight. And it also, so that's the labor side of it. And there's a lot there. I mean, especially with what's gone on with employee versus contractor interactions over the last decade or so. Some of those people are 1099 as well. And so there's a concern there from a labor perspective, but also in that, the other side of that labor piece is the trucking market itself. It's already suffering. It suffered in 24. It's not doing great in 25. Better than 24, I believe, but not doing great because of the introduction of tariffs and stuff. So now this is just another compounding thing, because now we have those individuals here that may not be here legally, have CDLs that they shouldn't have, and now quoting freight very cheaply, hauling it for less than what they should, being part of that, as I like to refer to it, the race to the bottom. You know, let's be the contributing factor that helps depress rates even more. Who wants that?
Yeah. Justin, and I think you and I spoke about this the other day. I have certain customers who haul for themselves and lost their own contracts.
Yeah, that was interesting.
To carriers who just came in and just gave cut rate rates. And how do you stay in business? And they know that this company isn't going to stay in business for the long run. There's no possible way. But when you have somebody, and again, I don't know how legal they are, whatever it may be, but when you have somebody undercutting you that much to where you lose your own contract when you haul for yourself, I mean, that's what's really scary. It really worries me about where the industry may be going if this doesn't get, if some headwinds don't come here and put a stop to this, because it can get really scary really quickly.
Yeah. No, I agree that there's, the labor issue, freight issue. And I live in Oklahoma, and our governor announced, that there had been 130 illegal immigrants apprehended, and they were along I-40. They're calling it Operation Guardian. And these folks were from India, Uzbekistan, China, Russia, Georgia, Turkey, Tajikistan, Ukraine, and some other places as well. But 130 of them down I-40. So it was ICE and the Oklahoma Highway Patrol that had apprehended 130 CDL holders. Now, one of them that specifically made headlines was a license that said "no name given," issued in the state of New York. In the state of New York, the first name, last name, it says "no name given," and it made my hair stand up on the back of my neck, because I was like, "How is that okay, New York, for a CDL holder not to even have a name listed on their CDL?"
I want to get into that here in a little bit more detail after our break, because that's very, very interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I certainly have my perspectives to share on that. My experiences actually on that, with literally no name given. So that'll be fun to visit that topic when we come back. But you mentioned the enforcement. You mentioned what Oklahoma is doing. Florida, obviously, because of that tragedy that happened, they were some of the first with using their agricultural department to join with the state police in increasing their number of interdiction sites, turning ports of entry and agricultural checks into those sites in order to check for the ELP qualifications and stuff like that, and the non-domiciles. And even today, I had heard here in the state of Michigan that they had done the same thing at the border of Michigan and Indiana. There was roughly somewhere around 100 Michigan State police that were part of a highway interdiction focused on this. So as time goes on, we are hearing more and more states getting into this. And really, I would say, I think that's probably a response to Secretary Duffy's order that states who do not comply with the current requirements of issuing and giving CDLs, and then also what is likely to become new requirements around, testing and certifying, things like that, that highway funding will be pulled. That's not a little dollar amount.
And what's really concerning here, guys, is that's only the amount of people that have been stopped. So how many more are still out on the roadway? Because there's only so much enforcement you can do. So that's what's really scary. Is this, 5%, 10, 50? We have no clue at this point. This could be a lot more rampant than we really think. So that's something we, really got to keep our eyes on as well.
Well, everyone, we want to know what you think. This is a very sobering conversation that we're having in response to the most recent final rule about these strict DOT enforcements and requirements. And we're going to continue the conversation. If you want to chime in, go ahead and do it on social media at Carrier Code Podcast. You can also email us at knowthecode@carriercodepodcast.com. We'll have more with you when we come back. This is Carrier Code.
Carrier Code is sponsored by Driver's Legal Plan, CDL ticket defense for professional drivers. Hey, Justin from Carrier Code here. I'd like to thank Driver's Legal Plan. They protected my CDL while I was out there on the road. They can protect yours too.
It just takes a phone call. It's only $2.98 a week, and they will help protect your CDL.
Contact Driver's Legal Plan today and let them defend you like they have me and more than 400,000 other cases. When you need CDL ticket defense, there's only one, Driver's Legal Plan. Call 1-800-580-8789 or visit driverslegalplan.com for your free consultation. Again, that's 1-800-580-8789 or driverslegalplan.com.
Well, welcome back to Carrier Code. Today we are talking some current events. We're talking about the recent final rule about non-domiciled CDL holders. I shared a little bit of information about Oklahoma's Operation Guardian, and there is in an article this snapshot of a CDL, and the first and last name is no name given. Oh, I think we have some feelings around this. Rocco, what are you thinking?
Think we do. So, Chrissy, Justin, have you two ever been able to sign up for a service without giving your name or any information?
No.
I was
No.
thinking about this when I read it. To sign
Yeah.
up for anything, I don't care
Mhm.
what it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You have to at least put a name in.
First name, last
Yeah.
name, email address,
Yeah.
phone number. You got to
Anything.
respond to texts and email confirmations and
Yeah.
verifications for everything.
So you're telling me that there are states that are allowing unqualified drivers to get CDLs that say no name given. How is that even remotely intelligent?
Or it sounds like they were issued a CDL in one state, surrendered it to
Yeah.
the next state without any testing. And, it's like, I think someone called it the rubber stamping of CDLs, right? Because I feel like that's what this feels like. But anywhere else and in any other industry, it is a matter of protection to know someone's first and last name. And even if culturally you don't have those, I still think that they're like, how did it pass? How did we move forward with actually issuing a CDL to a person with no given name? I think that's dangerous. I think it really is.
It's certainly interesting, and it is ironic or kind of funny a little bit to hear you share that about down in Oklahoma, because I've actually had a driver that has worked with me with no name given, and then their single name. Some of these folks come over, they have a single name. Maybe others, maybe it's just a complication thing to put it in writing, and or it's too long or whatever it is. I don't know, but at least in this particular driver's instance, because certainly we were thrown back by that. We asked him, and very clearly it said, I have just this name. That's it. So they wanted a first and last name. So it was no name given for the first name, and the last name was the name that he has gone by forever. I mean, that's his name. That's his only name, single name.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, very interesting story, a personal anecdote, if you will. But my grandfather had an initial name, and it was just LK. It didn't stand for anything. It was just LK. He had 10 other siblings. And the joke in our family is that my great grandmother got tired of thinking of a name and just started with initials, right? And so we kind of just laughed about it. But my uncle, who's named after his father, he named himself Lewis Kenneth because he got tired of people saying, okay, well, what does the LK stand for? Right. And he went through the steps to legally have his name changed to Lewis Kenneth. I mean, he still went by LK sometimes. Right. But it's just like, hey, this happened so many years ago. But then now in the current state, he was just like, I need a real name because this isn't good enough. And if we can come to those terms and do the steps that it takes to make sure things are legitimate and legal for the purpose not of just identity, but of safety, then how is that something that we're not encouraging for non-domiciled CDL holders? And so I think the state that issued that that CDL has some explaining to do, and we'll probably see more of that coming up because these executive orders, these final rules, these regulations, it doesn't look like they're slowing down anytime soon. What do you think, guys?
Oh, I think this is going to keep just rolling and rolling and rolling. And in law
Hmm.
enforcement, we had back in the day, that's called a clue. When you see something that says no
Ooh.
name given, that's called a clue.
Oh,
You know,
love it.
so you know, but no, I think it's going to get stricter and stricter and stricter as we move forward here for a little while, and those carriers who aren't playing by the rules, and I hate to put it in those terms, they're going to find themselves probably in some hot water here. It's not going to go away. So you have to play by the rules here and the laws that govern what you're doing. I mean, it is what it is. And I think it's going to be tough times for some carriers here going forward, guys. Really do.
Yeah, it certainly is, and that's why we got to talk about it now. But like we started with the show, okay? It's not a discrimination issue. It is these are the laws that are on the books today. They should be enforced. There are plenty of laws we don't like. If the majority of those in this country do not like this particular law, then they need to remember that at time of election, vote whatever way you think is going to improve that in the state in which you reside. It starts at some state levels, then it will move up to federal levels, and we make changes in laws, and that's what we do. You work with your agencies, your associations, like we talk about all the time, and you advocate for change. But this is enforcing the current laws that are on the book, not creating or making stuff up. It is designed to obviously protect the American or U.S. economy, those that are here as either citizens or legal immigrants, those with the proper visas. So it's not restricting those that are here doing it the right way from having the CDL and being able to engage in this industry.
Yeah. And I kind of think about even just a regular DOT employment application where you have to enter a social security number and a date of birth. Whereas for non DOT employment, there are laws that protect a person. Hey, I don't want to, you don't have to put in your date of birth. You don't have to put in your full social security number. That comes later, when we're a little farther in that recruiting process, right? And so just knowing that someone was able to do all of the other steps and not have a proper name. And I use the word proper loosely because we do, I want to respect a person's culture. Because I think that is important, but also our industry is one of a safety sensitive function, right? And so understanding that some states have allowed things to move forward and other states are pushing back, as is evident with Operation Guardian. We see that here in Oklahoma and in other states. I think, Justin mentioned Michigan and Indiana and Florida. And I think we're going to continue to hear more of these stories coming up. And so, this is definitely something that's not going away. And I think we need to really, turn the conversation to how we will prepare and how we will respond. What do you guys think?
So Christy, you touched on something, and you mentioned some states there. So, what do we think that's going to do to the commerce going into those states now? Is it going to make it stronger? Is it going to make those carriers want to domicile out of those states? Is it going to pull them out? So I think there's a lot that can be said there, and a lot that's going to have to be taken very, very seriously on what is that going to do now? If you have some states who are just going to allow anything to fly and not really hold the laws, or is that somewhere where you want to do business versus somewhere where at least the majority of what's going on and what's being moved down the road is being done legally, how it should be, and there's enforcement for those who aren't following. What are your thoughts on that, Christy?
Well, I think this is going to have some very long-standing effects. And if I were to sum it up, I would say two things. Number one, it's going to come down to your standards. And each carrier, you determine what your standards are. You determine, what your culture is, of course, but you determine how you respond, right, with those standards and how you move forward with your recruiting efforts, your hiring efforts, your retention efforts in response to these final rules. And then number two is requirements, right? You have to hold that line of defense and say, hey, this is the standard and we don't deviate from it. Now, we know that when things get tight, sometimes those requirements go out the window because the freight has to move. But I think these are the times when we hold our ground and say, hey, this is what it is. I'm going to create the standard and we're going to make sure to enforce that standard. And for a lot of carriers out there, what that means is understanding, what your hiring requirements are, making sure that you understand the ins and outs of English language proficiency, that you have processes set in place to make sure that you're training and you're coaching your people, so that you can continue to move forward in these tough times. Because I think it's going to get tough before it gets better, but the jury's still out on that.
Yeah, Christy, that touches on the recruiting side of things as well as the retention side of things, because this also bridges that part of our industry as well. And you're right. I mean, my suggestion to motor carriers would be that they do need to take a look at their processes and make those adjustments so that they're not hiring in those that they would ultimately lose on the back end because of the current laws and regulations. On that side too, is they need to take a look at their current fleet. So again, my suggestion is work with your vendors. As I'm kind of moving my way and navigating through this, the non-domicile CDL holder thing tends and seems to be, certainly the feedback I'm getting from license monitoring services and other agencies, is that that's not actually a data set that any of the states share. They transfer that to, say, a license monitoring service or an ATS type or a background company. They don't get that piece of data that says it's non-domicile. Now, maybe some do. So you're going to have to, most likely as a carrier, go through each and every one of your driver files and take a look at that, because you might have made some hiring decisions thinking, hey, they have a CDL, they can legally drive. But now you might need to go back and look at that and look, do I have any non-domiciled CDLs, and do I need to take action now?
And Justin, just to go back on that a little bit, and that's going to be an effort for these carriers. And that's something that they're really going to have to put in the forefront, I think, in this day and age. It's not going to be an easy task. It's not going to be a light lift. It's going to take quite a bit of effort for them to go back. And again, it's protecting themselves, protecting, everybody else out on the road. But they're going to have to take that step, take that initiative, and then go back in time and say, do I have any drivers here that can cause me? They may be a great driver. Let's not take that away, but that can cause me grief legally down the road, down the path, if I don't take action and make sure we get this driver to be legal and compliant.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, I think these are all really, really great points, and I think that, as I have said before, there's no silver bullet. It's going to take action from everyone to make sure, number one, that you understand what we're up against as an industry, and what we have to lose if we don't do it right. I think that there is a lot that we need to talk through. And I attend a lot of conferences where there are lots of CDL schools and a lot of initiatives around, really highlighting the wonderful, opportunities that are in the trucking industry, right? And I think those are some of my favorite conferences and events to attend throughout the year. And I can almost imagine CDL school enrollment even dropping, right? As folks who know they don't meet the requirements, or who have started hearing about what's going on in the news, how they're going to respond to it. A couple episodes ago, we talked about one of our lead ATA classmates who shared a personal story of their driver having there's the spouse of their driver, helping them through CDL school. And, I'm not saying that if someone is not proficient in the English language that they are non-domiciled. That's not the correlation that I'm painting here, because everybody has a different situation. But I'm saying that there will be some overlap here, right? So just understanding what's going on, even from the level of, hey, we want to get them into school. We want them to see this as a very valuable career and career path, and a learning opportunity to help them have a really wonderful career. I think the CDL schools are going to start seeing some tough times too. And so, I mean, I think there's a whole lot, not just the fleets recruiting, but also schools that are trying to get them into their programs as well.
Christy, that actually touches on something else that we have not discussed yet on this call. And that is, I'm starting to see this kind of a call to action, some change in the ELDT, the entry level driver training programs, and the requirements around those, so that it better vets this. As you were talking about, you're going to see an impact to the schools. And I think you're 100% right. I really do. I think there's definitely going to be an impact there. It may thin out the pool in a negative way. Those that probably, as you said, right, not trying to make the correlation between not being proficient in the language as meaning you are non-domicile, but it'll remove those people that just don't meet that requirement today, and maybe could seek out some additional English language training and maybe come back to CDL school. But you're right, you'll see some folks, I think, that won't engage or enter into those schools based on their limitations today.
Yeah. And I think historically, some of these programs are very siloed, right? Where we don't necessarily see us learning together. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot of strategy. Sometimes it's like, nope, this is this program and it doesn't impact this one. But we really know it does, because these are the same pools of people that we're talking to, the same population of folks who are going to get a CDL, who go to those schools to be trained, who are going to be at the different carriers being employed there, right? These are the same people that we're talking about. So as we have, these thoughts and these open discussions, I'm hoping that, from a federal level, that we're able to make the updates to programs so that it makes sense, right? And that all of the programs complement one another. Because again, I think these shockwaves that we see through the industry, I think they can have a softer impact if we were to think through them just a little bit more. So yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah, this is a tough topic. It's one that certainly needs to be addressed, and it needs to be discussed. And I think it's great that we're here having this discussion today. And I certainly would like to hear from some of our listeners. So remember, at knowthecode@carriercodepodcast.com, please email us, and we'd like to understand maybe some of the challenges that you're seeing, and maybe some of the changes in your program to address this and maybe limit the impact to it.
Absolutely, Justin. That's a great idea. I think that we would love to just, anonymously share some insights and tips that anyone would like to share with us if they go ahead and email us, because I feel like this conversation is going to continue. Now, just to summarize a little bit of this conversation today, we're talking about domiciled versus non-domiciled CDL holders. We talked about some state-specific enforcement activities that have been going on, that have been buzzing in the industry and are leaving a lasting impression. Although this is a very sobering topic, we want everyone to stay informed and be vigilant. And then your unique situation is just that. It's unique. It's special. It's you and you alone, right? A lot of these drivers have very, very unique circumstances and cases, and we want you to be able to work with who you need to work with, right? But I think it's about understanding the regulations and about using some strategy to make sure that you're covered. And so that's all this is about. This is about just sharing information so that you can make decisions that are best for you and for your fleet. Sobering topic, but a really necessary topic nonetheless. It may get a little worse before it gets better, but one thing I know about this industry that we love so much is that we can handle just about anything.
This will be impactful and will be tough at first, but I think like we always do in this industry, we will come out better on the other end for it.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So for all you carriers listening out there, just make sure you stay encouraged, stay informed. And here at Carrier Code Podcast, we have our ear to the ground, and we're excited to bring you new episodes every single week. Carrier Code is sponsored by Drivers Legal Plan, CDL Ticket Defense for Professional Drivers, and produced by Bulldog, Trucking's podcast pros. New episodes drop every week, so be sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss an episode. You can listen on your favorite podcast platform, watch on YouTube, or visit us anytime at carriercodepodcast.com. You'll also find us on all the social channels at Carrier Code Podcast. Thanks again for joining us, and until next week, I'm Christy.
I'm Justin.
And I'm Rocco.
And this is Carrier Code.